situation. But the man, the myth, the legend, JTT has joined us, and I don't want to miss out on an opportunity to talk to him about sort of MLS media landscape stuff, U.S. Open Cup. He's talked to Nelson Rodriguez. There, hey, look, he did that himself. I did not have him put that name up there. So.
I did indeed do that myself, gentlemen. Good evening.
For the
OMFPG-13, it's JTT!
Hey, look, my man is representing his hometown, the District of Columbia, by wearing a Ben's Chili Bowl shirt right there. That's a DC institution.
Is that like
Jared.
competing with the Cincinnati chili? Like, I don't know anything about it. Like,
Well, no, it's superior because we don't put it on pasta. But
yeah, is there spaghetti in yours? Like, no.
I'm ready.
Nope.
I'm ready.
I know you
for
are.
the fight.
I love that Nicky's not even here to defend himself.
Here's what I'm going to say. It's been a long week in my hometown, as Jason knows as well as I do.
Mm-hmm.
And second of all, Ricardo Pepi should not go anywhere near West Ham.
Okay. Yeah.
Why is that, John? Why is that?
It's not a
toxic.
well-run club, A.
Mm-hmm.
And B, I think it's too big a jump at once.
Would you rather go to Brentford?
He doesn't want a Premier League. I don't think you want. You don't want.
Brentford is a better run club.
Better run club, 4 points ahead. Don't need a striker as much as West Ham. So is it better to go to a good club or where you're going to get opportunity?
Where you're going to get opportunity, and I don't know that the Premier. Where you're going to get opportunity, but West Ham is not a well-run club, and it hasn't been.
That is
a while.
a fair statement. That is a fair statement.
But all the bubbles, John. The bubbles. You're not thinking about the bubbles.
And as much as the Augsburg move did not work, I wouldn't mind him going back to Germany. I just think that the Eredivisie to the Premier League, when we know that there's not a lot of defense played in the Eredivisie,
that is fair.
A big jump.
Yeah, I think in hindsight, we know now that it was Augsburg. It wasn't Pepe. I think that's pretty clear at this point. I don't think it was a Pepe issue. I think it was a tough team.
I don't know that they're ready to spend this kind of money, but I will not say, and I know, look, you've got Raul Jimenez, who has been okay so far. I mean, okay, pretty good. We've got Carlos Vinicius. We've got Rodrigo Muniz, who hasn't done much. Fulham could go after Ricardo Pepi, and I'd be okay with that.
I would be okay with that too, but I would love to see him in Spain. I would love to see more Americans in Spain generally. I know the passport rules are a little tough.
Yeah.
I'd like to see more Americans in France too, and I'm not sure how many French clubs right now are a jump up from PSV. But
if Lille decides to sell Jonathan David and they have a little bit of money to throw around, they could certainly turn around and buy a Pepe for cheaper than they sell David, and just
he might walk for free, so they might want to buy cheap.
I wonder if Pepe likes breast.
All right, we're going to move on. No, I'm just kidding. That's
real quick, John, before we're going to move on to a topic that you know a lot about, but a quick question. Sure, be honest with me. Be honest with me. You've read all those books behind you?
No. There's not that many.
Okay, I appreciate that because, I mean, if I had my bookshelf, I'd have the same answer. I just wonder.
There's a larger bookcase to that way that is not on camera. I haven't read all those books either. I would love to someday, but
gold books, right? Gold books.
I don't have time to read as many books as I'd like.
Jason hasn't read his either. I'm telling you.
What I will say is, go ahead, Jason.
I've read a lot of books. I just haven't read every book that I've been given. Just haven't, there's anyway, go ahead.
What I will say is that, as Jason knows, I think from the last time I was on the show, I live in an apartment, not in a house like some people, which is why the scenery is not as dramatic as it is for the two of you.
Oh, you mean like with my random wires behind me and my kid's size 4 ball back there?
And a fireplace, it looks like, in Southern California.
The fireplace has never been lit.
Last week he had to dip out on the show at the very end because his firewood was being delivered. And I was like, you live in Southern California.
It was like a 3/4 of a cord. It was a lot. And I had to go on. Hey, it was the flow of 40 today.
Oh,
40. Really?
Yeah.
You're outnumbered. You're outnumbered for the moment, Jared.
That's fire weather.
You live. All right. JTT is here to talk actual soccer things, and let's bring it domestic. I'm glad he's here. So lots of things have happened domestically. One of them is that Major League Soccer has made some decisions around the Open Cup, and I think this is going to be an educational experience for Mr. Dubois because I don't think he's caught up on this. I don't have the graphic in front of me, John, and I don't know if you know which teams are in which competition off the top of your head, but
I know enough about
okay, well, Major League Soccer last year threw a big hissy fit over the Open Cup. It's run poorly and the fields are bad and we don't like our product being there.
Let's do Leagues Cup that no one cares about instead.
And they paused for a month for Leagues Cup, and
Dead fixture congestion as a result of it.
And definitely there's a little bit, there's clearly some propaganda happening in terms of the messaging as we've doubled the number of teams participating in the Open Cup or whatever it is. But it still doesn't mean everybody's participating in the Open Cup, and there are some truthers and some traditionalists out there who are kind of upset.
Look, I wrote the piece that I wrote for a reason, which is they have made progress, but don't let anybody tell you that they're all the way there. Because all the way there is everybody's in the Open Cup. And the league treats it properly, which they are still not yet doing. The complaints that they've had, or that they've claimed that they've had, which they probably have had, about nobody should play in the Open Cup at a loss, including the lower league teams, and venue standards and all this other stuff. Sure. Their real complaints were about other things, and we all know it. I believe, Jason, you have not just one, but multiple radio shows where you have talked about this very subject.
Multiple broadcasting outlets.
You do multiples?
Yes.
Man, look, I just can't get enough
to me.
Of talking into a microphone. So I do it too many times in a given
on
week.
behalf of America, we've had enough.
So So I was in New York a couple days ago.
Enough of me. Not enough of what the other things that are happening, but enough of me. Yeah, that's where America's at right now. Thank you, Jared. Appreciate it.
I was in New York a couple of days ago for a couple of business matters, and one of them ended up being to sit down with Nelson Rodriguez at MLS headquarters, and he said he'd take some questions from me, so I'd asked him. And among the things that I asked him out of this, because buried in the 16 teams in the Open Cup headline was a decision by Major League Soccer that any given team in the league this year is only going to play in at most 2 cup tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
And Nelson Rodriguez said to me on the record that we have a responsibility to look at player load. Well, that was the first time I'd heard anybody at MLS say that in 30 years.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. Because
but is it genuine, John? Is it genuine? That's a genuine answer, or is that a way out of getting out of the Open Cup?
It doesn't have to be in my book because he said it and nobody else had said it before.
Okay, sure. But Nelson Rodriguez is the Chinese finger trap of MLS conversation. So
sure,
both is.
I pushed him, though I pushed him on it a little bit because he said two phrases in the course of the conversation that I found notable. Player load and fan fatigue. He said, part of it is being conscious of player load, and this doesn't get said often, but at least I believe there's also fan fatigue. And I said to them, you're finally admitting it.
Yeah, but fan fatigue, which was created by MLS, they're letting themselves. I think they're trying to let themselves off the hook here with that. I agree. Fan fatigue is a thing.
There's a trend of people making problems and saying, I'm the only one that can clean them up.
I agree with that. I completely agree with that. But the first step is acknowledging you have a problem, right?
Sure. Candid.
So if somebody at MLS, because Don Garber hasn't said it yet, somebody at MLS who's high enough and has power behind closed doors finally said, yes, we've actually heard the fan complaints. We realize they're getting fed up. And maybe he did not say this part, though I tried to get him to. Maybe he noticed how many empty seats were at the League's Cup last year.
I don't think it's going to be much different this year, if I'm being honest with you, John.
I agree with you.
It's a different tournament this year, but who knows?
What I pushed him on and tried to, as I've said to people in the last few days since the story went up, I put the trough of the water in front of the horse and I tried to get the horse to drink the water. The horse looked down at the trough, thought the water might be appetizing, realized I was on the other side of it and refused to drink the water. So,
okay.
So, it seems obvious to me and enough other people that the League's Cup can be structured in a way that it's the second-tier club competition here. Because there are clubs in the CONCACAF Champions Cup and the League's Cup. That, to me, is a flaw. You can have it where X number of clubs are in the Champions Cup. The next 16 are in the Leagues Cup. And then you have a scenario where if every club's only going to play in 2 competitions, then everybody can be in the Open Cup.
Yeah, and I'll say beyond that, John, like as a not even of a fan of these 2 teams, but when I see the Open Cup roster and I don't see Seattle or Kansas City in it, that hurts. These
I'm
are
with
2.
you.
I mean,
Sure.
Kansas City's MLS next
Sure.
pro team is in it. Let's
I'm
not
with you.
let's not get it twisted.
No. But how about yes? Because both those teams have would
Historic.
have a chance if they wanted this year to match the all-time record for Open
And the
Cup
defending
titles.
champion, not that Jared acknowledges that team is not the tournament either.
That too,
Yeah.
right? That one sticks out to me. How are you going to call your participation in this tournament legitimate if you don't let the defending champion participate?
I'd never called it fully legitimate. What I'm trying to get,
Not you.
I'm
talking them. I'm talking about
to
them,
get
John.
them to is to say, is there a future where the Leagues Cup becomes the second tier club competition in the way that the Europa League is in Europe? They have to admit, because they would have to be willing to devalue that competition commercially in order to make it happen.
Why could we ever imagine, and this is about MLS, but also about UEFA and also about the Premier League and also about every other organization organizing football in any given part of the country or part of the world or whatever, Liga MX obviously as well. They want control. They do not willingly relinquish control, John. So I can't imagine MLS is like, yeah, you know what we're going to do? Make the League Cup secondary to the Champions Cup because that's better for the league or better for the fans or better for North American soccer. It's not. It's. I'm too cynical to believe it could.
Well, there's an opportunity here to have a bit of synergy between these tournaments that would make it more appetizing, at least to me, is if you ran the Open Cup and the Open Cup ahead of Leagues Cup, which if I'm not mistaken, I think it does for a portion of it. And then the top 4 teams of the Open Cup came into the Leagues Cup, and the bottom teams, the first teams that get eliminated out of the Champions Cup, come in as well. And that's part of the Leagues Cup makeup. That's more interesting to me because that means an amateur team could make it all the way to the Leagues Cup potentially if you let in the top 4 finalists.
I'm not asking for that. I'm not asking.
I am.
I know, but if the Leagues Cup is going to remain a competition for the professional leagues, if the only thing stopping it from being the CONCACAF equivalent of the Europa League for MLS and Liga MX, because there is already an equivalent for the rest of the continent. There is already a second-tier club competition that teams from other countries, not the U.S. and Mexico, are in.
You mean one or the regionals? You're talking about the regional
Libertadores?
It's called like the CONCACAF League or something like that. And the top 3 teams in it qualify to the Champions Cup.
Okay, I see what you're saying. But isn't that fed by like a Caribbean championship?
Yes.
Caribbean, and
the Central America and so on. Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
So there is an avenue to make that happen, but it would require allowing for the potential of devaluing the commercial value of the Leagues Cup, and Apple won't have that, I'm sure.
No. And that's ultimately the master at play in all of this is Apple. I mean, it would be naive to think otherwise, right? I mean, it seemed to be, at least the way I read it last year, is that the fit that MLS had over the Open Cup may have been about things that Garber mentioned in the U.S. Soccer board meeting, but it could also be that Apple people were like, why is Lionel Messi playing in a competition that's not on our service?
And what did they promptly do? They gave them some broadcast rights, and that was the end of that. So, I think, and I raised it as a suggestion. It wasn't shot down. They weren't going to shoot it down like that to me, obviously. But I, as a lot of other people do, start from the end goal of getting every American MLS team into the Open Cup. How do you get there? Well, you've created a rule, a sensible rule that every team is going to play in at most 2 cup tournaments. Okay, then don't have teams double up on the Champions Cup and the Leagues Cup. That opens the door to get everybody in the Open Cup.
Yeah, everyone who's not in the Champions League goes to Leagues Cup, and then everyone also does the Open Cup. That's your
correct.
Yeah.
Or whether it's everyone or 16 or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So a couple things. One more thing on this before we move on, because I do have other things I want to ask John about. But one of them is, where is U.S. soccer? What is their role in any of this? Because again, I will reference people who are sort of justifiably, even though I think there's clearly a reading U.S. soccer can use to get MLS off the hook here, but there are lots of people saying it's a requirement that you're supposed to play in your domestic cup competition if you are a first division professional soccer team, or any professional soccer team for that matter, John.
I think U.S. soccer's place, having talked to various people over time, including recently David Applegate, whose jobs include commissioner of the Open Cup. Jason, I believe you know him. Jared, I don't know if you've met him over the
Christina's
years.
dad?
No.
Oh,
No.
my bad.
No. I don't know what drops Jason has for that.
I don't know.
Damn, dog, that's an approach.
I don't know what you want me to play.
No, but the general sense I've gotten from people is, can we please not have a stupid fight out in the public? That's U.S. soccer's perspective, and can we not basically?
Have they seen what's going on over at NASL?
Oh, I think they have, and here's what I will say about that. In general, in court, the smarter party is the one that keeps its mouth shut the most.
Oh, good luck with that with Rocco.
I believe that Rocco Camiso has talked his. I'm not in that courtroom. I know some reporters are. I have not been following as closely as I would probably like to. I think Rocco may have talked his way out of winning that suit, and that's just my own personal opinion.
I mean, I don't think that comes as a shock to a lot of people who have interacted with Rocco
No.
Camiso, who is obviously a smart guy, but is absolutely not capable all the time of maybe holding back. The thing that we found out in that trial is that Jared, he had a burner. Did you know about his burner?
I heard about it. What was the account name? Did they give the account name?
It was like
Global Soccer Fan or something like that. Yeah.
Fan underscore
Come
global.
on, it could be way better, like Don Garber's balls or something like that. Like it could have been something funny.
What? Okay, that would be inappropriate, and Rocco is anything but no.
Oh, sure.
What I was going to say,
Dude, this honestly, a burner. Can you imagine Chuck Blazer in the era of burner accounts?
Oh man.
What if I said
man.
yes, I can?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think it's
Parrot Head 69.
I don't think it's impossible to imagine that many soccer executive in America has had a burner account. Whether they used it to actually say things or engage is different than if they had one to. I believe Siggy Schmid, the late great Siggy Schmid, may have had a burner account at one point on one.
I know Jim Curtin had one, and may still.
Well, there you go. Jim Curtin doesn't need a burner now. He doesn't. He can say whatever he wants, up to a point. What I was going to say is, obviously, that does not look good for NASL at the moment, but we will see where it goes.
I would say the specific terminology in particular that was used on that burner account, and the fact that the lawyers got Camiso to admit on the stand that he had used those words was not the smartest thing I've ever seen.
He may have compared soccer executives, soccer figures in America like Don Garber, Sunil Gulati to some of the worst criminals in history.
Yeah,
Jared. He may have compared them to Bernie Madoff, maybe, for example, is one of the names that came up. I think there may have been
saying
another.
they're talking about the soccer pyramid.
That's exactly. Rocco was commenting on the soccer pyramid in America. All right, yeah. Okay. So again, lots of things happening. Want to touch on another thing that John wrote about, and I'll admit I did not get a chance to actually read this story, John. That's on me. But I know you also touched on the schedule switch idea. Can you catch us up, maybe what you know on MLS's place on that right now?
Yeah,
obviously, I'm not the first person who has written about this. Paul Tenorio and Henry Bushnell did coming out of the Board of Governors meetings a couple of months ago. And since I was in the building at MLS headquarters, I thought I'd ask, well, how's that gone along since then? And is there any further progress on the subject? And I will read the quotes from Nelson Rodriguez here. It is being discussed. It remains in exploration and examination. And he said, if a decision, and it's an if to make a flip, happens, it's natural, somewhat romantic to think of it as coming out of the World Cup in 2026, but it's not essential. And the reason why the 2026 hook has come up and been discussed behind closed doors is because they're going to have to break for so long in the summer of 2026 that it might make sense to pull the trigger at that point.
So you have a truncated, like just March, or maybe try to start back up in January and run to May. I mean, what does that season look like that year? That's an interesting one.
I couldn't tell you, but you're gonna play some soccer games.
There's gonna be some
give
asterisks
somebody a
all
trophy.
over the winners of that thing. And you know, just do Leagues Cup and that's it. That's all you have to do, baby. This is the in game Leagues Cup.
Well,
that's what make it last 3 months.
I asked what the timeline was. He says the work will be done this year and a decision will be taken at some point this year.
I feel like this dude's like
Interesting.
George R.R. Martin. Like at some point you're gonna get the last book, but who knows what the timetable is.
I told you, man. It's like Chinese finger trap. It's like you don't know what's happening. I can't get out, but you can't figure out what's going on. It's
if it doesn't end up happening, then I'll raise that point with people next January and say so.
JTT, I got one more question for you before we let you go. True or false? That bed was made before you decided to come on.
Huh?
Did you make the bed? Like, was your bed already made, or did you make it? You make it in the morning?
He's a good boy. He makes his bed every morning. What are you talking about?
Oh God, I'm so behind him in the world. I'm so a child still.
Oh, well, that's not a surprise. JTT, thank you very much for coming on.
Do you know how much I would have to clean my room before I could turn on a camera?
Oh man, my room is immaculate.
All my wife's stuff, by the way.
I live with a wife who keeps it that way. Not claiming that myself. JTT, thank you so much. Should I play you out?
If you want to, tell the people to go read the thing I wrote about the Apple stuff.
Hey, where can they find that? Where can they find that, JTT?
Yeah,
I'm on Blue Sky. Throw my name in there; it'll come up.
It's not under the goalkeeper.
No, he's not the goalkeeper over there.
Was it taken?
No, I'm sort of done with that branding and have been for a long time.
Identity shift.
It's over.
Pretty soon he's going to call. He's just going to go by X.
End of an era.
Look, you were being indoctrinated with Princeton and Yale stuff back in the day. No wonder you went in the wrong direction. But that's
no Nittany Lions up in here.
Okay.
No, not Penn State.
It's an.
I went to not Penn State.
It's an Ivy League battle. You're all There's certainly. Oh gosh, I can't handle that right now. Thank you.
It's all East Coast stuff, dude. I don't understand any of your stuff.
PG-13.